Hello students, a very good evening to all of you. Welcome to my channel. This is a very important class on modern novelists and today we will talk about Virginia Woolf. But before starting, I want to give you a brief introduction about myself. My name is Vrishti Mukherjee. I have qualified NTA UGC NET exam in English literature four times and have also qualified West Bengal SET examination. I have 2 years of teaching experience. Moreover, I have also taught in NPTEL online course from IIT Madras 3 times. So that is all about myself. Good evening, Papri. Welcome. This is the link of my Telegram channel. So those of you who have not joined yet, please join to get notification of all important classes. And also please don't forget to like, share and subscribe my YouTube channel so that many more new learners can join. And these are the timings of the classes. So Monday to Friday at 8:30 p.m. Saturday, Sunday off. So don't forget to join me live. Please subscribe the channel and press the bell icon to get notifications. Okay, so those of you who are watching this video, please like and share so that many more new students can join. Okay, so let's start our discussion. Today our topic is Virginia Woolf and today is the first part of the video. Virginia Woolf part 1. Okay, Virginia Woolf part 1. So let's start with the brief biographical discussion, then we will move on to her novels. And in today's class, we will discuss 4 important novels, early novels written by Virginia Woolf. Good evening, Anima. Welcome. So let's start. 1882 to 1941 is her timeline. Virginia Woolf, a very important modern novelist. Okay, this is the image of Virginia Woolf. You can see. So Virginia Woolf, her full name, not exactly title, her full name was Adeline Virginia Woolf. That was her complete name. She was born on 25th January 1882 in London. Good evening, Rajkishore. Welcome. And her family was a well-to-do family in South Kensington. Well-to-do family. Okay, she studied Victorian literature and classical literature at home. Very interestingly, she is a modern writer, but she was greatly inspired by Victorian literature. She studied Victorian literature and classical literature at home, and she was encouraged by her father to write professionally. So her career as a professional writer started from the inspiration of her father. She was married to Leonard Woolf, who is also a very prominent name in literature. She was married to him. Now, she was nicknamed as the goat. Very interesting. Remember that. She was nicknamed as the goat. Okay. And Virginia Woolf herself suffered from mental problem or mental breakdown. She experienced a nervous breakdown following Toby's death and lifelong nervous illness. Who was Toby? Toby was her brother. Okay, so after the death of her brother, she faced a kind of shock, a kind of nervous breakdown, and that was actually the cause of her lifelong nervous illness. तो एक mental trauma उसके अंदर था, and इस trauma का reflection आपको मिलेगा in Mrs. Dalloway through the creation of the character of Septimus Warren Smith. We will talk about Mrs. Dalloway in today's class. So she experienced a nervous breakdown following Toby's death and lifelong nervous illness. So she herself is a patient of psychological trauma. Now this is a collection of essays. Hyde Park Gate News. This is a collection of essays. She wrote Hyde Park Gate News with her sister Vanessa. Vanessa is later married to Clive Bell. You have heard the name. He is a famous painter and architect. So Virginia Woolf wrote Hyde Park Gate News, that is a collection of essays in collaboration with her sister Vanessa. Now, about her own birth, she said these following lines. You need not to remember that, but just know कि उन्होंने क्या बताए थे अपने birth के बारे में. She says that she was born into a large connection फैमिली की बात कर रहे हैं वो लार्ज कनेक्शन, born not of rich parents but well-to-do parents, born into a very communicative, literate, visiting, articulate late 19th century world. So what are the things he mentioned? Very communicative, literate, visiting, articulate, late 19th century world. So Virginia Woolf herself analyzed the time of her birth in this way, the particular age of her birth in this way. Okay, so just take a note of that. So that is about, yes, so that is about this thing. Now if we talk about her family and career, then her nephew Quentin Bell wrote her biography, which is important. And Virginia Woolf was also very much traumatized because she was sexually abused at the age of 6 by Gerald Duckworth. That was also the result of her psychological trauma or any kind of mental breakdown. So she suffered from that kind of a violence, and that developed a lifetime resistance to masculine authority. She became a completely feminist writer, जिन्होंने बाद में लिखा था a room of one's own, right? We will talk about a room of one's own in our next class. So that particular experience from patriarchy, or that particular oppression from patriarchy, rather insult from patriarchy, made her a lifetime resistant to masculine authority. So this incident is very important in her life. She worked as a teacher at Morley College in evening shift. तो नाइट शिफ्ट में वो पढ़ाते थे एट मॉर्ली कॉलेज. एंड दिस इज वेरी वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट. शी एस्टैब्लिश्ड हर ओन प्रिंटिंग प्रेस whose name was Hogarth Press with her husband Leonard Wool. So very important thing that she established Hogarth Press with her husband Leonard Wool. Okay, now her first publication was two stories in July. Sorry, not her first publication. It was the first publication from Hogarth Press. ठीक है. सो आफ्टर द एस्टेब्लिशमेंट ऑफ दैट प्रेस, ये जो वर्क है टू स्टोरीज इन जुलाई, दैट वर्क वाज फर्स्ट पब्लिश्ड फ्रॉम दैट पर्टिकुलर प्रेस. Okay, so remember that two stories in July published in 1917. And बाद में और क्या क्या चीजें publish हुआ था? The Wasteland, very importantly, Wasteland was also published from Hogarth Press. And Catherine Manfield's Prelude. Please don't get confused. This prelude is not Wordsworth's Prelude, that epical poem. This is Catherine Mansfield Prelude, and it's a short story. Okay, Catherine Manfield's short story Prelude, that was also published from this press. And Virginia Woolf wrote the biography of Roger Fry. She was also a biographer. So her biography was written by her nephew Quentin Bell, and she wrote the biography of Roger Fry. Good evening, Nazreen. Welcome. So she wrote the biography of Roger Fry. So these are the major details about her life and her career. ठीक है, तो इसमें बहुत सारी चीजें इंपॉर्टेंट है. ये चीज इंपॉर्टेंट है, बायोग्राफी ऑफ रॉजर फ्राई. दिस थिंग्स आर इंपॉर्टेंट. एस्टेब्लिशमेंट ऑफ होगार्थ प्रेस एंड ऑल द पब्लिकेशन. This incident is important. Okay, which form a lifetime resistance in her. ठीक है. उसके बाद ये चीजें इंपॉर्टेंट है. शी रोट हाइड पार्क गेट न्यूज विथ हर सिस्टर वैनिसा. शी एक्सपीरियंस्ड अ नर्वस ब्रेकडाउन आफ्टर हर ब्रदर्स डेथ. शी वाज निकनेम्ड एज द गोट. Okay, and she was married to Leonard Woolf, encouraged by her father to write professionally. She studied Victorian literature and classical literature at home, and उनका जो पूरा नाम था Adeline Virginia Woolf. So all these details are important from her biography. Now we move on to her novels, and in today's class we will discuss 4 novels of Virginia Woolf. But before moving on to the novels, another thing is important, that is Bloomsbury Group. What is Bloomsbury Group? This group is very closely associated with the name of Virginia Woolf. So what is Bloomsbury Group? सबसे पहले शॉर्ट में देख लेते हैं. Actually it is a group of writers who lived in Bloomsbury district in London. तो ये जो ग्रुप का नाम है ये उस डिस्ट्रिक्ट के नाम से आया है, Bloomsbury district in London. They started to meet around 1905 to discuss various issues related to art and philosophy. ठीक है. So around 1905 they started meeting together and their point of discussion is what? Various issues related to art and philosophy. And also very importantly they advocated feminism and anti-war ideas. इन दोनों का ही रिफ्लेक्शन, anti-war ideas का रिफ्लेक्शन आपको मिलेगा in Mrs. Dalloway, and feminism का रिफ्लेक्शन obviously है A Room of One's Own. So this group was greatly influenced by Sigmund Freud, remember that, and the main feature is Bloomsbury writers, they rejected old Victorian ideals and preferred to live progressively and liberally. Remember, I have just said that Virginia Woolf have already read Victoria literature and classical literature in detail in her home, at her home. So that is why she knew what are the merits and demerits of Victorian age, and as Victorian age has already passed and they are part of modern age, so they always try to rebel against that conservative Victorian ideals and they are trying to make the society progressive. तो modern age में जो transformation हमने देखा कि Victorian age was very conservative, focusing on values, focusing on integrity of life, but later modern age में हम देखते हैं कि disjointed narration, fragmentation, life has no certainty, all these things are coming together because modern age is completely modern and modern age is completely different from Victorian ideals. The World War has changed the society completely. So after World War there can be no coherence, no certainty, no ideology or no romanticism in life. So life is very disturbed, life is very dissatisfied, and also there are disillusionment, there are frustration, depression, all these are associated with modern literature. So Virginia Woolf and also the other members of Bloomsbury group, they are trying to advocate that particular idea. तो इस ग्रुप में कौन कौन थे? वर्जीनिया वुल्फ वाज एब्सोल्युटली द लीडर एंड उसके साथ एसोसिएटेड थे, आप सबके नाम ही जानते हो, लियोनार्ड वुल्फ, हर ओन हस्बैंड, वैनिसा बेल, हर सिस्टर, लिटन स्ट्रैची हु रोट एमिनेंट विक्टोरियंस, ईएम फॉर्स्टर, अच्छा ये दो बार हो गया, ईएम फॉर्स्टर, रॉजर फ्राई, मेनार्ड केन्स, ऑल ऑफ देम आर मेंबर्स ऑफ ब्लूम्सबेरी group. So remember that this is a very important group, very important society in modern era. Okay, now let's move on to her novel. So the first novel which we are going to discuss, that is The Voyage Out, published in 1950. Voyage Out, published in 1950. Now this particular novel, it is not so famous because actually it was his debut novel in that sense. So it was actually revised version of her first novel Melimbrosia, and remember Melimbrosia is not so famous. तो डेब्यू नॉवेल हम मानते हैं द वॉयज आउट को बिकॉज दैट इज द मॉडिफाइड वर्जन ऑफ दिस नॉवेल, एंड मे बी ये जो अर्लियर वर्जन था ये उतना स्ट्रॉन्ग नहीं था टू बी पब्लिश्ड, सो वर्जीनिया वुल्फ ने इसको रिवाइज किया विद अ न्यू टाइटल. So actually it was titled as Melimbrosia. It is actually a revised version, modernized version of Melimbrosia, and the modern title is The Voyage Out. So remember that is the source. तो इसका प्लॉट क्या है? मेन जो स्टोरी लाइन है वो ये है कि रैचल विनरेस, she is the main character. She goes to South America on her father's ship and is launched on a course of self discovery. So ये जो journey है रैचल विनरेस का, that is actually a journey of self exploration or self discovery. So there is no specific purpose to discover any land or all these things. She is just exploring her own mind and she is broadening her own mind, and thus she is experiencing herself in a new light, that is self discovery. तो ये नॉवेल में वही है, सेल्फ डिस्कवरी की बात हो रहा है, एंड फाइनली शी डाइज ऑफ ए फीवर. दैट इज हाउ द नॉवेल एंड्स विथ रैचल्स डेथ. ओके, तो ये नॉवेल इंपॉर्टेंट इसलिए है कि दिस नॉवेल फॉर द फर्स्ट टाइम इंट्रोड्यूसेस द कैरेक्टर क्लैरिसा डैलोवे हु बिकम्स द मेन प्रोटैगनिस्ट ऑफ मिसेस डैलोवे. तो ये लेटर नॉवेल में आते हैं, दैट इज व्हाई इट इज इंपॉर्टेंट. तो अगर इस टाइप का क्वेश्चन आए कि क्लैरिसा डैलोवे वाज फर्स्ट इंट्रोड्यूस्ड इन व्हिच नॉवेल, तो आप मिसेस डैलोवे मत करना, ठीक है. इसका आंसर होगा वॉयज आउट, बिकॉज वॉयज आउट में क्लैरिसा डैलोवे के कैरेक्टर फॉर द फर्स्ट टाइम आया था. लेटर वर्जीनिया वुल्फ डेवलप her into a protagonist in a new light in the context of World War in Mrs. Dalloway. ठीक है, तो और एक बात है कि लिटल स्ट्रैची इज ऑल्सो मेंशन्ड इन दिस नॉवेल एंड दिस पर्टिकुलर कैरेक्टर John Hurst, this particular character John Hurst, his character is modeled on Lytton Strachey. Okay, so this is also important. So Lytton Strachey is mentioned but indirectly through the character of John Hurst. Yes, The Voyage Out. So that is about this particular novel, The Voyage Out. तो इसमें ज्यादा कुछ इंपॉर्टेंट चीजें नहीं है, बस आप मेन कैरेक्टर का नाम याद रखना, टाइटल का सोर्स याद रखना, एंड दिस टू थिंग्स आर वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट दैट जॉन हर्स्ट his character is actually modeled on Lytton Strachey, and this particular novel for the first time introduces Clarissa Dalloway, who later becomes the protagonist of Mrs. Dalloway. ओके, चलो नेक्स्ट नॉवल में आते हैं, नाइट एंड डे, पब्लिश्ड इन 1990. Her second important novel, Night and Day. The title is very interesting. It's talking about transformation of life, or you may say that the transition of life from sadness to happiness, that kind of thing. So Night and Day has 4 major characters. कौन कौन से कैरेक्टर है? कैथरीन हिलबेरी, मेरी डैचेट, रैल्फ डेनहैम एंड विलियम रॉडनी. They are the 4 major characters in this novel, and basically this is an early feminist novel written by Virginia Woolf. You all know that A Room of One's Own Virginia Woolf has written, but that is much later. Okay, so her early feminist novel in that sense, this one, Night and Day, because in this novel she raises some very fundamental questions on marriage. Marriage means the importance or justification of marriage. Very interesting. Justification of marriage in patriarchal society. Why marriage is so important? Why do we consider marriage as a holy institution, and everyone is bound to get married after a certain age? Why marriage is given so much importance in society? Is it justified or not? Woolf is raising that question, and also she raises some questions on women's suffrage movement. She is analyzing this movement, how much this movement is justified, how much its contribution is justified. Okay, so that is why this novel is important. And also remember that this novel has a reference to As You Like It, Shakespeare's play As You Like It. So this kind of minor questions may be asked in your exam, that which of Virginia Woolf's novel has a direct reference to Shakespearean play? So that is Night and Day. Which novel of Virginia Woolf is considered her early feminist novel? That is also Night and Day. So these things are important. Good evening, Suman. Welcome. तो याद रखना, इसमें मैरिज के ऊपर एक क्वेश्चन वर्जीनिया वुल्फ ने किया है, justification of marriage or the real importance of marriage in society, and also she raises some fundamental questions on women's suffrage movement in the context of patriarchal society. Okay, so that is about Night and Day. Moving on to third novel, Jacob's Room. You have heard this, you have heard the name, I think, because ये question हमने पढ़ा था when we for the first time read Modern Age. तो ये question हमेशा आते हैं कि 1922, that is a very significant year of modern era, and in this particular time 3 major novels, 3 major works were published. One is The Wasteland, another is Ulysses by James Joyce, and the third is Jacob's Room. तो ये एक बहुत ही बेसिक क्वेश्चन है जो हम सबको रट्टा मारना है, ठीक है. और भी कई सारे वर्क है, बट दीज 3 आर मोस्ट इम्पोर्टेंट. तो जिसमें ये दोनों नाम बहुत बार आते हैं, बट वी ऑफन फॉरगेट जैकॉब्स रूम, right? Yes, so the Wasteland, Ulysses and Jacob's Room, that is why 1922 is considered as the cult year of modern era, जिसमें कई सारे इंपॉर्टेंट वर्क्स है मॉडर्न एज का जो इसी ईयर में पब्लिश हुआ था. सो जेकॉब्स रूम इज आल्सो अनदर नॉवेल व्हिच वाज पब्लिश्ड इन 1922. Now this novel is important to decide or to analyze Virginia Woolf's writing career. Why? Because Jacob's Room is actually her first experimental novel and first of Woolf's novels to be published from Hogarth Press. Okay, now don't get confused here. I have already told you that Hogarth Press was established by Virginia Woolf with Leonard Woolf. Okay, and the first work published from Hogarth Press was Two Stories in July, published in 1917. So that was the first publication from Hogarth Press. And now I am saying the first novel of Virginia Woolf, which was published from Hogarth Press. तो ये दोनों चीजें अलग है. ठीक है, तो वर्जीनिया वुल्फ के कौन सी नॉवेल पब्लिश हुआ था? दैट वाज दिस नॉवेल जैकब्स रूम. दैट इज व्हाई इट्स वेरी सिग्निफिकेंट. ओके, तो अपने पब्लिशिंग अपने प्रिंटिंग प्रेस से उन्होंने ये नॉवेल पब्लिश किया था. ठीक है, दैट इज व्हाई इट इज इंपॉर्टेंट एंड ऑल्सो इट वाज वर्जीनिया वुल्फ फर्स्ट एक्सपेरिमेंटल नॉवेल. ठीक है, तो प्लॉट क्या है? अब इतना इंपॉर्टेंट नॉवेल है. सो जैकब्स रूम. जैकब कौन है? जैकब is a young boy who lives in the seaside town of Scarborough. So remember, Scarborough is the setting. Seaside town of Scarborough. His mother Elizabeth takes him to Cornwall, another place. Cornwall. Now, frequently, Captain Barfoot comes to meet them. Basically, them, not exactly them, but meet only Elizabeth. And there is a peculiar relationship between Elizabeth and Captain Barfoot, जिसका कोई प्रॉपर एक्सप्लेनेशन नहीं है. मतलब व्हाट काइंड ऑफ रिलेशनशिप इज देयर, what kind of relationship exists between them, that is difficult to say. It is a mixture of love, friendship, और respect. सभी चीजों का एक मिक्सचर है. So Elizabeth has that kind of relationship with this captain. Now clergyman Andrew Layard proposes to her, but she rejects. She means Elizabeth. Elizabeth rejects. Now Jacob attends Cambridge University and later he declines to pursue any form of employment. So Jacob is disillusioned. After getting that institutionalized education from Cambridge University, after some years Jacob feels very bored and he feels isolated, जो सभी modern man के अंदर होता है. ठीक है, so he declines to pursue any form of employment and he was greatly fascinated with the mysteries of the past. तो एक दूसरा fascination उसके अंदर आ गया था. She is studying in a different line, but later he is studying in a different line and later he becomes very much interested, very much obsessed rather, with the mysteries of the past. So ancient सभी चीजों के ऊपर एक obsession आ गया था जेकॉब का. ठीक है, and now Jacob falls in love with Florida, but Florida, very interestingly, she is completely uneducated and wild in temperament. Jacob is very much serious, Jacob is very calm and cool, but Florinda is very wild in temperament. ठीक है, now Clara and Fanny also fall in love with Jacob. Clara and Fanny, they are two other girls who also fall in love with Jacob. Later Jacob is attracted towards Greek culture and he visits Greece. तो एंशियंट चीजों के ऊपर फैसिनेशन उसका ग्रो हो रहा था एंड फाइनली जेकॉब इज वेरी मच इंटरेस्टेड इन ग्रीक कल्चर, सो ही विजिट्स ग्रीस. Okay, later what happens that he visits Greece, but his attention is distracted seeing another woman, Sandra Wentworth, who is touring Greece with her husband. ठीक है, so he feels distracted seeing that, and the novel ends with a pair of Jacob's old shoes indicating that he is dead. So the novel ends with the death of Jacob. So Jacob's Room, that is the title of the novel. So the whole novel is talking about Jacob, his journey from a Cambridge student to a lover of ancient history, you may say, or ancient culture. And finally, due to that particular love, he has to die. तो ये बेसिकली नॉवल है, एक्सपेरिमेंटल नॉवल, मॉडर्न नॉवल, जेकॉब्स रूम, पब्लिश्ड इन 1922. Okay, now the last novel of today's class is Mrs. Dalloway, published in 1925, जो कि I think आप सबने पढ़ा है. एंड मिसेस डैलोवे के साथ एक टर्म जुड़ा हुआ हमेशा होता है, दैट इज स्ट्रीम ऑफ कॉन्शियसनेस नॉवल. यू ऑल नो व्हाट इज स्ट्रीम ऑफ कॉन्शियसनेस नॉवल. तो बस शॉर्ट में मैं एक बार फिर से बता दे रही हूँ व्हाट इज स्ट्रीम ऑफ कॉन्शियसनेस नॉवल. सो दिस पर्टिकुलर टर्म स्ट्रीम ऑफ कॉन्शियसनेस दैट वाज coined by William James in his work Principles of Psychology. William James in Principles of Psychology. तो ये क्या चीज है बेसिकली? स्ट्रीम ऑफ कॉन्शियसनेस. इट इज टॉकिंग अबाउट दैट आवर कॉन्शियसनेस फ्लोज लाइक अ स्ट्रीम. So this particular novel is trying to capture the flow of mind or flow of thought. तो जैसे थॉट कभी लॉजिकली प्रोसेस नहीं करता, अभी हम प्रेजेंट के बारे में सोच रहे हैं, इन द नेक्स्ट मोमेंट वी मे गो बैक टू पास्ट, एंड इन द नेक्स्ट मोमेंट वी मे गो बैक, वी विल come to future. So our mind always shifts constantly from past to present to future. So there is no coherence. Okay, so that is why stream of consciousness. Consciousness का stream. Stream means river. ओके, सो रिवर कब कहाँ जाते हैं हमको नहीं पता होता है, बिकॉज रिवर का जो जाने का रास्ता है वो भी बहुत डिफिकल्ट होता है, एंड रिवर गोज इन अ zigzag manner always, right? So in the same way, our consciousness is like a river which also follows that zigzag way, and it's very complex to interpret that way of consciousness or way of thought. So stream of consciousness, it is a modern genre which is trying to capture our flow of thought, and in this way, in this particular novel, we get fragmented narration, we get non-linear plot. ठीक है, तो जो क्रोनोलॉजिकल अरेंजमेंट होता है वो ब्रेक हो रहा है यहाँ पर. ठीक है, समथिंग वेरी कंफ्यूजिंग टू रीड, कभी पास्ट में, कभी प्रेजेंट में, कभी फ्यूचर में जा रहे हैं. So it becomes very difficult to match all these things. Flashback and flash forward का reference, sorry, use बहुत ज्यादा होता है. Yes, free flow of thoughts. So these are the important feature of stream of consciousness novel. You all know it's a basic literary term. तो मिसेस डैलोवे एक ऐसा ही नॉवेल है जिसमें स्ट्रीम ऑफ कॉन्शियसनेस टेक्निक आते हैं. वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट नॉवेल एंड ब्यूटिफुली कैप्चर्ड द डिसल्यूशनमेंट ऑफ वर्ल्ड वॉर. तो सेटिंग है इसका पोस्ट वर्ल्ड वॉर इंग्लैंड, एंड यू कैन सी दैट 1925 इज द पब्लिकेशन ईयर. सो जस्ट द एंड ऑफ फर्स्ट वर्ल्ड वॉर ये पब्लिश हुआ है. ठीक है, एंड रिमेंबर दैट दिस नॉवेल हैज एन ओरिजिनल टाइटल, द आवर्स. द आवर्स वाज द ओरिजिनल टाइटल of this novel. Basically, it was a combined version of two short stories. One is Mrs. Dalloway in Bond Street. Another is The Prime Minister, which is unfinished. So, ये याद रखना. It's a combined version of two short stories. And this novel, very interestingly, it covers one day in the life of Clarissa Dalloway. Like Ulysses. Ulysses में भी एक पर्टिकुलर दिन की बात हो रहा है, तो यहाँ पर भी एक ही दिन में सेटिंग है नॉवेल का क्लैरिसा डैलोवे के लाइफ. Now, Clarissa Dalloway है कौन? She is an upper class lady and she has planned to arrange a party. तो पार्टी के लिए वो कुछ सामान खरीदने जा रहे हैं, and she is walking throughout London, through London neighborhood to prepare for the party. Now, while returning from a flower shop, her old friend Peter Walsh arrives. She is meeting Peter Walsh. Peter Walsh. Okay. Yes, this kind of novel follows the protagonist's thought process instead of a proper plot. Yes, actually there is no particular plot, but it is actually the thought process of not only the protagonist but also the other characters. So while returning from the flower shop, her old friend Peter Walsh arrives. Now Peter Walsh है कौन? Not only her friend but also her past suitor, and Clarissa has already rejected Peter's proposal. And she is now married to Richard. So Richard Dalloway, his wife is Clarissa Dalloway. Good evening, Kriti. Welcome. Now they have a daughter, Elizabeth. Now when Peter comes, Peter talks with Clarissa, and Peter asks her whether she is completely happy with Richard or not. And the moment Clarissa is going to give her answer, Elizabeth arrives. So Peter has to leave, and he goes to Regent's Park. Okay. Yes. तो नाउ जो मेन कैरेक्टर है नॉवेल का वो आते हैं. जैसे मैंने आपको बताया कि डिसजॉइंटेड नरेशन है, नॉन लीनियर प्लॉट है, दैट इज व्हाई कैरेक्टर शिफ्ट हो रहा है. तो ये एक वर्ल्ड वॉर के टाइम का एक पॉइंट बता रहा है. सेप्टिमस वारेन स्मिथ, हु इज अ यंग पोएट एंड अ फैन ऑफ शेक्सपियर. ओके, बट एज एट दैट टाइम, means during the time of World War, it was a rule that every young man of every family must join the army. तो ये एक रूल था. So Septimus Warren Smith, actually he was also a young boy, young poet who loves to read Shakespeare, who is a great fan of Shakespeare. तो एक aesthetic जगह से उनको भी आर्मी में ज्वाइन करना पड़ा एंड ही हैज रिटर्न विथ इंजुरी फ्रॉम द फर्स्ट वर्ल्ड वॉर एंड नाउ इन ए ट्रॉमा. Remember, Virginia Woolf was also traumatized, right? So थोड़ा सा ऑटोबायोग्राफिकल रेफरेंस यहाँ पर है. नाउ अब ये ट्रॉमा किस टाइप का है? इन नॉवेल इट इज रेफर्ड एज शेल शॉक. Now, I hope you are familiar with this term shell shock because we very frequently use this term when we talk about Wilfred Owen, Siegfried Sassoon and all the war poets. तो shell shock क्या चीज है? तो during the World War, it was a kind of army skill, or you may say that it was a kind of skill of war, जिसको हम गेरिला वार कहते हैं. ठीक है, गेरिला वार एंड ऑल्सो ट्रेंच वारफेयर, ये एक बहुत ही पॉपुलर टर्म है. नाउ ट्रेंच वारफेयर मींस कि ट्रेंच के अंदर बैठकर सोल्जर्स फाइट करते हैं दूसरे टीम के साथ, दूसरे कंट्री के सोल्जर्स के साथ. अब ये ट्रेंच के अंदर रहना इज अ वेरी डिफिकल्ट थिंग बिकॉज ट्रेंच मीन्स यू कैन अंडरस्टैंड इट्स जस्ट अ होल अंडर द सॉइल. तो वहां पर रहना मतलब बहुत ही ज्यादा डिफिकल्टीज होते हैं. द प्लेस इज वेरी नैरो, सो सोल्जर्स हैव टू क्रॉल beneath the soil to save their life. एंड उसमें बैठकर कंटिन्यूअसली आवाज आते हैं बॉम्बिंग का, बुलेट्स का. सो इट क्रिएट्स ए काइंड ऑफ मेंटल ट्रॉमा. कंटिन्यूअसली अगर इस टाइप के आवाज आते रहे तो द सेंसिटिव पीपल दे फील वेरी शॉक्ड. एंड बाद में जब वो वार से वापस आते हैं तब भी उसके अंदर ये ट्रॉमा रहता है. एंड दे ऑल्सो सी देयर ओन कॉमरेड्स दे आर डाइंग. ठीक है, तो एक ही फील्ड में एक ही कंट्री के जो सोल्जर्स है, एक सोल्जर दूसरे सोल्जर की डेथ देख रहा है, दूसरे कॉर्नेल की डेथ देख रहा है. ठीक है, सो दैट गेव अ ग्रेट नंबर ऑफ शॉक टू दैट पर्टिकुलर सोल्जर हु इज अलाइव. तो जो लोग जिंदा वापस आते हैं वहां से, वो लोग जिंदा तो होते हैं नॉर्मली, absolutely, but they are not mentally fit. So that is shell shock. It was a specific kind of trauma faced by mainly the soldiers of First World War, and it was a result of trench warfare. ठीक है, okay. Good evening, Cherry. Welcome. अच्छा, चेरी का एग्जाम है. ओके चेरी, ऑल द बेस्ट फॉर योर एग्जाम, पुलिस सब इंस्पेक्टर एग्जाम. ओके, ऑल द वेरी बेस्ट. चलो, तो वापस आते हैं नॉवेल में. सो ही हैज रिटर्न्ड विथ इंजुरी एंड दैट पर्टिकुलर ट्रॉमा ऑफ शेल शॉक. नाउ ही एंड हिज वाइफ लुक्रीजिया नाउ लिव इन रीजेंट्स पार्क. लुक्रीजिया नेम आपने एक और राइटिंग में भी सुना होगा, दैट इज आंद्रिया देल सार्ट्रो बाय रॉबर्ट ब्राउनिंग, राइट? उसमें भी लुक्रीजिया नेम है एंड लुक्रीजिया इज अ टिपिकल इटालियन नेम. So here in this novel also Lucrezia is an Italian girl. So he and his wife Lucrezia now live in Regent's Park. And Septimus is waiting for his appointment with William Bradshaw, Dr. William Bradshaw, who is a psychiatrist. ठीक है, वो एक साइकोलॉजिस्ट है, विलियम ब्रैडशॉ. तो विलियम ब्रैडशॉ को दिखाने के लिए सेप्टिमस इज वेटिंग एंड ही इज ऑल्सो द विक्टिम ऑफ आइडियोलॉजी. Because when Septimus joined war, he was very much moved by or inspired by patriotism, great romantic ideal, जो हम हमेशा देखते हैं रूपर्ट ब्रूक के वर्क में कि if you can die for your country, then it will become very glorious and all these things. जो भी normally patriotic, nationalistic ideology होते हैं. So Septimus Warren Smith is also the victim of ideology because he doesn't know the reality of war before joining it. जब वो आर्मी में जा रहे हैं तो उसके अंदर ये पेट्रियोटिज्म था कि yes I can do anything for my motherland and that sacrifice will be remembered by my country people forever. But ऐसा नहीं होता है, which Wilfred Owen has exposed, which Isaac Rosenberg has exposed, which Siegfried Sassoon has exposed. ठीक है, remember the poem Dulce et Decoramist, where the poet is saying that how the soldiers, they are suffering from death, they are dying, and another soldier is seeing them to die, but he can do nothing for them. So that is the situation when blood comes gargling forth from mouth and all these horrible details are there. They are almost dying out of poisonous gas or all these things. So that is the reality of war. But Rupert Brooke and other poems, they are trying to idealize war. Ki war means sacrifice. War means something. War is an opportunity to become a martyr. तो ये जो भी चीजें हम बात करते हैं, दैट इज द रोमांटिक आइडियोलॉजी ऑफ वॉर. तो सेप्टिमस वारेन स्मिथ इज ऑल्सो द विक्टिम ऑफ दैट आइडियोलॉजी. एंड ही सीज हिज फ्रेंड इवांस डेथ. जो मैंने अभी आपको बताया, ट्रेंच वारफेयर में ऐसा ही होता था कि एक सोल्जर अपने ही फ्रेंड की डेथ को देख रहा है, एंड दैट गिव्स अ ग्रेट ट्रॉमा, दैट gives a great and horrible experience for Septimus. So he sees his friend Ivan's death and he is suffering from suicidal tendencies. So एक mental trauma continuously उसके अंदर चल रहा है. ठीक है? Yes. तो William plans to separate him. Now अब ये जो डॉक्टर है, विलियम ब्रैडशॉ, डॉक्टर फेल्स टू डायग्नोज हिज डिजीज. तो सेप्टिमस इज ट्राइंग टू एक्सप्रेस his own agony कि वो क्यों इतना disturbed है, but doctor cannot understand, he cannot diagnose properly, and he concludes that Septimus will be better if he can be separated from his wife and he must be sent to a mental asylum. So doctor is branding that this man is mad and उनको asylum में भेजना होगा. But Septimus is not mad actually, he is traumatized. तो कुछ दूसरा treatment चाहिए था उनको, but William fails to recognize that particular disease, that particular problem inside his mind, and he decides to send him to a mental asylum. अब फिर से वापस आते हैं रिचर्ड एंड क्लैरिसा के जगह पे. Now Clarissa is married to Richard. Definitely Clarissa has rejected her previous suitor Peter Walsh and she is married to Richard, but she is not happy because there is a communication gap between Richard and Clarissa. Richard tries to confess Clarissa that he loves her but can't. That is the problem of modern man or modern society. You are getting detached from your family, or not only family but any kind of relationship becomes meaningless. Okay, तो friendship कहो, जो family relationship होता है वो कहो, जो भी relationship है, everything becomes meaningless in the context of modern world. So Clarissa realizes that particular void of what? Void of isolation, void of detachment, void of breaking relationship. Clarissa realizes that her husband is not like the same. There is some kind of gap. Though they are living together, they are enjoying also the parties and all these things. Still, there are something that is not right, something that is missing. And what is missing? The communication, the passionate bonding between these two persons, that is missing. Now, two men come to take Septimus to asylum. And Septimus ने क्या किया? He is already suffering from suicidal tendencies, and Septimus jumps out of a window and commits suicide. Septimus is dead. Now the scene shifts to the party. प्ले के बिगिनिंग में हमने देखा कि क्लैरिसा एक पार्टी ऑर्गेनाइज करने वाले थे, तो उस पार्टी में वापस हम आते हैं. Now Clarissa tries to make it successful, but she is dissatisfied of everything. Clarissa is trying to make the party successful, but she realizes that something is not right. She is also feeling very much disgusted, dissatisfied. Now Peter and Sally Seton, yes, they are friends and they are the two persons who are failed to achieve their dreams. They are failures in their life. Now finally Clarissa पार्टी के अंदर ही, वो तो एंजॉय करने के लिए आए थे, but Clarissa can't enjoy. She is reflecting on Septimus's death, and she is also believing that the doctor is responsible for that because the doctor has failed to diagnose Septimus's disease. And ये जो उनको asylum में भेजने की बात डॉक्टर ने किया था, that probably traumatized him more and he committed suicide. But she admires Septimus for not compromising his soul, because Septimus has not surrendered finally. As a soldier, Septimus is always victorious. He has not surrendered he has not surrendered his soul to the doctor. He has committed suicide just to give his soul a relief. So Clarissa admires Septimus for that. So that is how the novel ends. Yes, because at that time there was no proper treatment for psychological disorder and depression. So doctor thought that Septimus is mad. विदाउट अंडरस्टैंडिंग हिज मेंटल कंडीशन। एंड ये तो एक सिचुएशन ही है, हमने फेमिनिज्म में भी देखा था कि दोज पीपल और दोज वीमेन हु आर नॉट फॉलोइंग द नेचुरल रूल और हु आर नॉट कंफर्मिंग टू द रूल ऑफ सोसाइटी, दे आर इजिली ब्रांडेड एज मैड। ठीक है, जिसके बारे में फुको ने भी कहा था इन मैडनेस एंड सिविलाइजेशन कि मैडनेस एग्जैक्टली है क्या चीज, इट इज कंसिडर्ड अ पोटेंशियल थ्रेट टू सिविलाइजेशन। तो यहाँ पर भी शायद बात सेम है कि सेप्टिमस का डिजीज वो डायग्नोस नहीं कर पाए एंड सेप्टिमस का जो सिचुएशन है, why he is sent to a mental asylum because Septimus is a disillusioned soldier। एंड अगर वो सबको ये रियलिटी बता दे कि वार ऐसा नहीं होता है, जो पेट्रियोटिज्म हमें बताया जाते हैं दैट इज एब्सोल्युटली फॉल्स, अगर ये बाकी यंग मैन को बता दे तो क्या होगा, नो वन विल पार्टिसिपेट इन वार इन फ्यूचर। तो इसको रोकने के लिए मे बी सेप्टिमस और द डॉक्टर हैज डिसाइडेड टू सेपरेट सेप्टिमस, टू आइसोलेट सेप्टिमस फ्रॉम द मेन स्ट्रीम सोसाइटी। उसको असाइलम में भेज दो ताकि उसके साथ किसी का भी कांटेक्ट ना रहे, वो किसको इन्फ्लुएंस ना कर पाए अपनी आइडियोलॉजी से। ठीक है, किसी के माइंड को भड़का ना सके, so that we can wash their brain with the same patriotic nationalistic ideology. Maybe Wolf is trying to say that. Yes, mad woman in the attic. Right. So Septimus is like an alter ego of Clarissa, though they never meet each other. Very good, Bharat. They never meet each other in the novel, but absolutely throughout the novel we find Clarissa is more attached to Septimus than to Richard. Very interesting novel and beautifully written by Virginia Woolf, Mrs. Dalloway. Okay, so that is about today's class. That is the part 1 of the video. Next class में हम बात करेंगे बाकी novels का, Virginia Woolf का. Next class will be on Monday at 8:30 p.m. So don't forget to join me live. Please subscribe the channel and press the bell icon to get notifications. Okay, so thank you all. Bye bye everyone. Good night. See you all Monday at 8:30 p.m.